Hi everyone, today I'm going to be giving you a tutorial on the Hoya method for big cubes. So a quick introduction to the method. Hoya is a reduction-based big cube method which works for every cube 4x4 and up. And when I say reduction-based, what I mean is you reduce the cube, you solve all of the centers and you solve all of the edge pieces so that you can then solve it like a bigger 3x3. If you don't yet know how to solve a 4x4 and bigger cubes, then I would highly recommend learning the beginner reduction method first and just get a bit more used to solving big cubes before you switch to this method. It's very similar in principle to Yao in that you solve your cross edges midway through your centers to make your last 8 edges and your 3x3 stage much easier for look ahead. So just to quickly outline the steps then. You start by making 2 opposite centers like this. And the important thing is here, unlike Yao, neither of these are going to be your cross color. So if you're color neutral, you don't need to worry about this. But if you solve on only one color or only 2, then these 2 first centers need to not be your cross color. Then you do 2 more adjacent centers. One of those is going to be your cross color, and that should end up on the bottom, and the other center should end up on the back. So what you are left with effectively is your cross color on the bottom, and then the front and the top centers unsolved. That looks like this. Then you move on, and it's this stage that you solve your cross edges on the bottom. So as you can see, we've got all 4 of these edges solved on the bottom, and that is our cross done, and our last 2 centers and our last 8 edges are not solved yet. Then the next step is to solve your last 2 centers, and that reduces the cube to looking like this. You have, as you can see, just 8 unsolved edges, cross is still solved, and all of your centers are solved. So from here on out, you can pair your last 8 edges up until you get to this, which is 3x3 stage, and again, the cross is already solved. So I'm going to start on 4x4 just because it's a bit simpler to explain. I'm going to assume that you know how to solve a cube and you know the basics of center building and edge pairing and that kind of thing. So I'm going to go over those fairly quickly. So what I'm going to do first is solve my first center, which in this case I'll go with blue. There it is. And then I'll do the green center next, which is opposite to blue. So I've got my 2 opposite centers done. Then I will do my next 2 centers. So let's do red next, like that. And this is the bit where, especially if you're on an even layered cube, you do need to know your color scheme. So I can see we've got green here and red here. That means this center needs to be white. So let's do that. And so now you can see we have our cross color center, which is going to be white. That's solved, as is the back center, which in this case is red. And then we have the 2 side centers solved as well. So we've just got our last 2 centers on the front and the top unsolved. And we're going to go through cross edges now, because this is the most unique and definitely the most difficult to get hang of step in Hoya. Now, at the start, when you haven't got any pieces solved, you can do something as simple as an F2 here to insert that piece. So you can just do outer layer moves to insert your first cross piece. You don't need to do slice moves. Then for this next piece, which is here, if the cross color, so in this case white, is facing towards you, then you can put this piece in the front and you can insert it with U, R wide, U prime, R wide prime, just like that. And that makes this cross edge. Now this also works on the left. So if you've got the right hand piece solved and the left hand piece is here, you can do U prime, L wide prime, U, L wide, and that works just the same. Now we've done this piece, we can just move it to the side and we can work on our next piece. And you do need to know your color scheme here again. So I know that this piece is red, so I know that this edge that I'm going to solve here has to be green. And so we've got our first green piece here. And at first, if the cross color is facing you, you can't do an F2 because that means it's flipped. So what you can do instead is U prime, R prime, F, R, just like that to insert it. Now our other important insertion that we need to know is when our second piece, which is this one, is in the U layer and our cross color white is now facing up. It's not facing towards us. So we can't just insert this as we did before. That doesn't work. So what we need to do is we need to turn it into the previous case. And the way we can do that is if we hold it in the front, we can do R wide, U2, R wide prime. And now this is flipped. It's now facing towards us. So we can carry on and do U, R wide, U prime, R wide prime. and that solves it. So to go through that completely, to solve this edge piece, which is oriented into here, we can do r wide, u2, r wide prime, u, r wide, u prime, r wide prime. And once again, this works exactly the same on the left, you just do all the moves lefty. So you would do L wide prime, U2, L wide, U prime, L wide prime, U, L wide. Just like that. Now moving on to our next edge piece, which is orange. We can solve this one first. And then this is the other 3-move insertion that's really nice to know. So this orange piece needs to go here. And obviously we can't just do an F move because that moves this out of the way. So what instead we can do is R wide, U, R wide prime, just like that. So that inserts this piece to here in 3 moves. And again, this works on the left. We've got this piece needs to go here. You can just do L wide prime, U prime, L wide. And then we can move this to the side. We've got one more left to do. It's blue. We've got a piece here, so it's oriented and it's our first piece. So we can just do an F2 to insert like that. Then we can look for our next piece, which is here. And then we can just insert it just like that. And then our cross edges are solved. Now for last 2 centers, obviously you can't go ahead straight away and solve these because that would break up this cross edge. So there are a few different ways that you can hide your cross edges and then do last 2 centers and then unhide them. You can do something like F prime, R prime. Now that breaks up the cross edges at the minute, but it means that we can then solve our last 2 centers completely unrestricted. And then at the end, obviously we need to undo that. We would do R, F. You can also do F, L, which is just the same thing on the left. Or another way you can do it is R prime, D prime. That finger trick might be a little bit difficult, but it's the one I use and I think it's good. So that also works. You can then solve your last 2 centers like that and then undo with DR. Now you are on to last 8 edges. And because your cross is solved, you know that none of the pieces that you need to still solve are in the bottom layer. So that means when you're pairing up your edges, there are much fewer slots that you need to look in order to solve your pieces. That was just a very quick example. I wasn't thinking too much about that. I just wanted to show you how it works. And then as you can see now, we're at 3x3 stage. And again, our cross is already solved. So we can go straight into solving our F2L, just like we would normally on a 3x3. Get to last layer. Unfortunately, we've got OLL parity. And PLL parity, because of course we do. And there we go. That's how a Hoya solve normally looks. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you on a 5x5 that the insertions that I've just shown you on 4x4 work exactly the same. So in this case, we're building our green edge on the bottom. We've got these 2 pieces solved already. And then this piece, just like we had before, the cross color is facing us. So we can do U, R wide, U prime, R wide prime to insert it just like that. And the same thing works on the left, U wide, L wide prime, U, L wide. Then we've got this case, the other 3-mover that I showed you, and this works just the same as well. And this case, the case where the wing piece is oriented, you can do exactly the same again. Just like that. And of course the mirrors work as well. Now 5x5s have more edge pieces. We have obviously these new pieces, these midges that go in the center of the edge like that. And you can insert them in a very similar way to the wings. Just using the M slice like that. So for this case, we've got our cross color white facing towards us. So we can insert this piece with U, M prime, U prime, M, just like that. And the other case, when we have our cross color on top like this, we can just do M prime, U2, M. It's as simple as that. Now, you don't have to use the M slice. If you've got pieces unsolved in your D layer, then you don't have to use those M slices. You can do things like 3R wide moves. So you can imagine this almost like another wing. And in this case, we've got this piece solved, but nothing here. So we don't need to worry about keeping this solved. In this case, what we can do is U, 3R wide. So we've all these 3 layers together, U prime, 3R wide prime. And that's a bit nicer to do than having to do more slice moves. Similarly, for this case, where our cross color is on top, and we want to insert it to the bottom, we can just do 3R wide, U2, 3R wide prime. No extra slices needed. So I'll just quickly go through the rest of the cross edges like this, just piece by piece to show you how you can do it. This case, we've got a piece in the front slot, and it's not the 3-mover, the nice 3-mover that I showed you before. So all we need to do is just bring it to the top layer. And in this case, we don't have a solved edge here, so we can just do one move to bring it to the top layer like that. If it were a case like this, where we did have a solved edge here, then we can still bring it to the top layer, but we need to do 3 moves like that to make sure we keep this piece solved. So now that we've got our piece in the top layer, we can just bring it in front and we can see that the cross edge, the cross color is facing us. So we can just do normal insertion just like that. Now I've got green and red solved, and I can see my next piece here is probably going to be blue. So we can do this. We can move this slot over because we know that blue now needs to be on the front, and we can solve it just like that. Then we've got another piece here. Now this is in the wrong slot, so we just want to bring it to the top layer like that, to the front, and then we can see our cross colors on top. So we want to do R wide, U2, R wide prime to flip it, and then insert it just like that. Then our last piece is here. Again, bring it to the top. There's nothing here we need to keep. And then we can just do M prime, U2, M to solve it. And finally, our last piece is going to be our orange edge. So move that to the front again. And then we can solve this piece, this wing piece, by doing an F prime. That's solved. And now this, our midge, is in the wrong orientation. So it's in its place, but it's flipped. So obviously we can't work with that. We need to take it out and then resolve it. So what we can do here is just imagine that we're going to substitute it with another piece, like this piece, say. So we can take this out by doing 3R wide or M prime, it doesn't really matter, whichever you prefer. I'll show it with 3R wide like this. Then we can do a U2 and then 3R wide prime like that. And that puts this midge in the top layer. So that's really nice. And now we've got our cross color facing us. So we can just insert it with U, 3R wide, U prime, 3R wide prime. Now our last piece, we can't actually see it in the U layer, and we can't see it in one of these front slots. So we need to check the back. It's not here, it's here. So what we can do here is we can just do R prime, U, R, just to take it out of that back slot. And the same applies if it were in this slot. You can just do L, U prime, L prime to take it out. Same with the front slots. You can just 3 moves take it out just like that. So now we can just insert this piece as before, like that, and our cross edges are done. Okay, now I'm going to briefly show you on 6x6 and 7x7 that exactly the same principles apply. There are just more pieces. It's important to state at this point that there are basically just 2 types of edge pieces. There are wings and midges. And on a 5x5, the midges are in the center and the wings are the 2 pieces on the outside. And any odd layered cube, like 7x7, also has these midges in the center of each edge, and then wings on either side. Now, even layered cubes like 4x4 or 6x6 don't have a central midge piece. They only have wings. There are these inner wing pieces and then outer wing pieces. And again, on 7x7, you have these 2 inner wing pieces and then the outer wing pieces as well. But they're both types of wings, so they function the same, and you can insert them just in the same way that I've already shown you. So let's look at 6x6 first. Here we can see we've got one piece of the blue edge solved already, and then there's another one here. So I can just insert it like that on the left. Then we might see this piece. So it's in the bottom layer, so we want to bring it to the top. And then to the front, we can see our cross color again, white is facing us. So we can insert it just like that. Then our last piece is here. Again, bring it to the top. Cross colors on top. So we would do R wide, U2, R wide prime to flip it, and then just insert it like that. Then I might see red next. I'd see this piece. So I can just solve it like that. Then we've got our next piece here. We can just insert like we did before. Now I can see this piece as well. Now it's in the front slot, and we can't just do one move because that will mess up this edge. So we want to do L prime, U prime, L to bring it to the top. And now it's cross colors facing on top, so we can insert it just like that. Then our last edge is back here, the last red one. So we can just bring it to the top like this, to the front, and then we can see the cross colors facing us. Now we've got this piece solved, this outer wing is solved, so we wanted to use just slice moves to insert this one this time. So we can do U, 3R, like that, U prime, 3R prime. And onto 7x7, and again, it's literally just the same thing. I can see I've got these two orange pieces here. That's a nice place to start. So I'm going to bring them up here and then put them in place like that. I'm going to look for my next one. Next one I can see is back here. So bring it to the front, it's oriented. So cross colors on top, so we can do 3R wide, U2, 3R wide prime, U, 3R wide, U prime, 3R wide prime, just to solve it like that. We've again got another piece here, so you can do the same thing just with the outer layers, like that to solve it. And then our last piece is here, so you can bring it to the top, insert it just like that, and that's one edge done. And I won't show the rest because it's just exactly the same from here on out. What I will say is that a good general approach to avoid minimizing those slice moves like I just used in that insertion is to either start from one side and work to the other. So solve the leftmost piece first, then the middle, then that one, or to start from the middle and work outwards. So if we were to start from the middle and work outwards, say on a 6x6, that would look like, I can see this is an inner wing. So let's start with that one, put it in like there. Then let's look for our other inner wing first. We can see this piece, but we don't want to solve it yet, because if we solve it, it will go here. And then that means we need to use a slice move to insert this piece. But let's say we want to do this one first. We can just insert it like that. Then we've got our other outer wings, which are here and here. We can do this one first. We bring it to the top, insert it just like that. Then our other piece goes in here like that. And we didn't need to use any slice moves, middle slice moves like that at all. So that was quite nice. The other approach, I'll show you with the orange edge, is to just work from left to right. So this is our leftmost piece. It's going to go down here, so I can insert it just like that. And I can see this, and this is a 3 mover, which is nice. But again, if I do that first, then I'll have to use 2 lots of inner slice moves to do the next 2 pieces. So I'm going to wait for that one. And I can see this piece here is the one that needs to go next. So we'll bring it to the U layer, to the front like that. And now we can insert this with our wide moves just like that. Then our next one is here. So we can bring that to the front, insert it like that. Again, don't need to use individual slices because there's nothing solved here. And now our last piece is in the back now. So we can bring it to the front and then just insert that just like normal like that. And our cross edges are done. So in general, especially on 6x6 and 7x7, it's a good idea, I think, to either work from left to right when you're solving edges, or to work from the middle outwards, so that you minimize the need for slice moves and you can just do fewer moves. Now, the bigger the cube, the more edge pieces there are, so the higher chance there is you might get a lucky case like this, where you've got 2 pieces already paired together. And this can be a good place to start. So if you're not sure whether to go left to right or middle outwards, you might see this block. You can see, oh, this is a midge, and it's got an inner wing already attached to it. So I'll start from the middle and I'll work outwards. So that could be a nice way to help you make that decision. So you can insert this like that. Then we've got our next middle piece here, which we can insert like that. Then the other one, do this. And our last piece is here. So just to finish out the video, I'm going to talk about my general thoughts on the method and why I think it has a lot of potential. So in terms of pros and cons, the best way to approach this is to compare it to Yao. And the pros compared to Yao are center efficiency, which there are no restrictions on it. So it's exactly the same as regular reduction, which is really good. And because your cross is solved when you get to last day edges and 3x3 stage, then your look ahead can be much better because you've eliminated your D-layer blind spots. Also, finger tricks for cross edges are quite nice because you're inserting pieces to the bottom, so you can do a lot of that as I've shown from home grip, and that's really good. The cons of the method are that cross edges use more moves than Yao, and also than just regular edge pairing, so you do sacrifice a bit of efficiency there. And cross edges are quite a difficult step with the Hoya method. It's harder to get used to and become familiar with. And in general, it's not a very developed method, so there are fewer resources out there to help you with things like walkthrough solves, but that's what I'm hoping to improve on. Now, as for the reasons I think the Hoya method has a lot of potential, while it isn't as anywhere near as developed as Yao, it has been proven that it can get very good results officially already. Things like mid-20 4x4 averages, sub-50 5x5, mid-120s 6x6, and sub-2 7x7. So those are very high barriers, and Hoya has been proven that it can do that. And importantly, I think while it does have less efficient cross edges in general, Hoya has more efficient centers compared to Yao. And the bigger the cube is, the more valuable efficient centers are compared to cross edges. Now, the reason for this is because on 4x4, there are actually the same number of edge pieces in total as there are centers. So we've got 2 edge pieces per edge of the cube, and there are 12 edges, so there are 24 total edge pieces on a 4x4. And there are 4 center pieces per center, and there are 6 sides, so we also have 24 center pieces on 4x4. So we've got the same number of edges and centers. However, if we go up to 5x5, I'm not going to include the fixed centers here because I don't think that matters. So we've got then 8, not including the very center ones, 8 center pieces per center. Times that by 6, there are 48 center pieces on a 5x5 to solve. And we have 3 edge pieces per edge, times that by 12 for the 12 edges, and then we get 36. So that is 33% more centers than edges on a 5x5. We've got 36 edges compared to 48 centers. And if we look at 6x6, so we've got on a 6x6, we've got 48 edge pieces and 96 center pieces. And on a 7x7, again, as you would expect, it's even more. So what that means is the bigger the cube, the more important it is to have really efficient centers, because across the whole solve, having really efficient centers will save you even more moves than having efficient cross edges or having efficient edges overall. So the Yao method sacrifices the efficiency of 2/3 of the centers because there are restrictions where you can't just do F moves, for example, because it will break up your cross edges. So there are a lot more slice move insertions and rotations that you can't do that will make your centers less efficient on Yao. And that only applies to 4 centers, but that's still 2/3 of the centers. And what that means is you get maximum efficiency for 1/3 of your edges, which are your cross edges. There are obviously 4 cross edges, and that's 1/3 of the total. So for Yao, you get worse efficiency for 2/3 of centers, but good efficiency for 1/3 of the edges compared to basic reduction. Now with Hoya, you only sacrifice the efficiency of 1/3 of the edges, your cross edges, but every single center is as efficient as on Redux. So there's no sacrifices there at all. And as the cubes get bigger, center efficiency is more important. So not having those restrictions on solving any centers, I think, is more valuable than having no restrictions on solving just some of your cross edges. So therefore, I think Hoya has a lot of potential, especially on bigger cubes like 6x6 and 7x7. So there you go. That's my basic tutorial on the Hoya method. If you have any questions, please do comment them in the comments. I will read them all and I'll reply to them. And I will have some more videos coming out soon about more extended tips on the Hoya method, because this I've only covered the very basics here. And obviously there's a lot more. Even though Hoya has not been developed that much, there's a lot more stuff that you can learn and implement in your solves to make them even more efficient and better. So I plan to release a few more videos in the coming weeks about those different tips of different skill levels as well. I'll have some more beginner and intermediate tips that hopefully everyone should be able to pick up relatively easily and implement into your solves. And then I'll have some more advanced tips as well, things that I've discovered while I've been playing around, and things that I think a lot of people might not know that can also save you a lot of time in your solves. So I hope this helped, and I hope that everyone can at least learn Hoya and give it a try and see if you like it, because the worst case scenario is you don't like it that much, you can't get used to it, it's not that good for you, so you just you don't need to use it. But if, like me, you learn it for the first time and think, oh, this is good, I like this, I think this is fun, then you carry on with it and you keep getting better, and all of a sudden the Hoya method is the fastest for you. So you never know. So I hope everyone can give it a try. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching.